This show is not designed nor intended to replace your legal or medical advice. Angel Heart Radio, its hosts, co-hosts and guests do not prescribe medical treatment, nor do we dispense medical or legal advice. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for supporting Angel Heart Radio. Supporting you is our focus. We want you to know that you matter in the world. I'd also like to take this opportunity to invite you to support us even further. So tweet us, Facebook us, pin us, post us to your friends' walls, email links to the shows to others. Thank you so much. You make what we do possible, and we are very, very grateful to you. Hello and welcome everyone to Angel Heart Radio. My name is Anaya Joy Halili and I'm coming to you live from Brisbane, Australia, and it's a gorgeous day here. The sun's shining and the sky is so blue, and it reminds me of the endless opportunities for hope and gratitude. We have such an incredible guest today. I'm very, very delighted. This woman has touched my life in many, many ways that she'll never know about. Her name is Rachel Simon. Rachel is a multi-award-winning author. She is a wonderful speaker nationally in the USA on disability and diversity, and she's right here with us. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, it's so wonderful to be here, and what a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
I want to let everyone know that your website is rachelsimon.com, and I invite everyone to open up that website. There are beautiful books available for you to have a look at and some information on Rachel as well. Rachel, I can't even remember how I came across your book, to be perfectly honest, riding the bus with my sister. But you know when you get that intuitive hit that you know that's a book you've got to read or a song you've got to listen to, etc.? That's what happened to me.
It's like a Cupid's arrow to the heart.
It really is. It really is. And when I got the book, I've read it twice, by the way, and I will read it again. There's so much in it. Beth is an amazing individual, and you are an amazing sister to Beth. I really want to say that first up. For people who don't know the book, Beth is a woman with mental retardation. How old is she now, Rachel?
Let me think. I'm 53, so she's 52. We're 11 months apart. And
you're twins. Yeah, sorry.
There's 1 month every year where we're twins. Yes, 1 month a year twins, and that month is let's see, your seasons are the reverse of ours, so it would be in your winter. It's in our summer, and that we have that year. So I always figure out her age by knowing mine, and I figure out my age by knowing hers.
Now, Beth has an amazing zest for life. She's an independent woman. She lives independently. She has a boyfriend. She loves to ride the buses. I'd like if you would now, Rachel, just to give us a glimpse into Beth and the buses, because this is so important to what I want to speak to you about.
Okay. My sister loves riding buses, and she lives in a medium-sized city in the state of Pennsylvania, and there's about 70 buses that run the routes in that city, and she knows everything about every bus driver and everything about every route, and at any minute of any day she can tell you the exact intersection every bus is at. But the thing she's most interested in is not the buses in terms of getting from here to there. It's the social world that she's created for herself on the bus. So she actually spends all of her time doing it. She gets up and has breakfast, and then she starts riding around 6 in the morning, and she rides bus to bus to bus until about 6 at night. And she does that 6 days a week, and she would do it on Sundays, except the buses don't run on Sundays. And she kind of cultivates the drivers who are the most generous in spirit, and the ones who aren't, she steers clear of, not to make a pun, and the ones who she likes the most, she ranks according to the top 10. And when a driver's in the top 10, they know they're in the top 10, and when they've been demoted, they know why. And when I wrote Riding the Bus with My Sister, I did not give a name to what my sister does, but after the book came out in the States, someone wrote a newspaper article about it where he did give a name to what she does. He called her a serial bus rider. And what I have discovered in the States, and I would think it's true for you as well, there are a lot of people in public transit who have read this book, and it's a very cherished book in that field because it's a very positive portrayal of really good bus drivers and the service they provide. And I've heard from so many of them that there are people all around the U.S. who do what my sister does, and most of them have some sort of a cognitive difference, and they have made the buses their home. And that's very much what my sister did and does. She still does. And I thought it was a unique thing and initially a very eccentric thing. I had a lot of trouble struggling to accept, she was doing that and not doing something more conventionally productive like have a job. But I ended up riding the buses with her for a year, and not every day. I'm not a saint. A few times a month I went for a day or two at a time and rode with her, and because they're 12-hour days, it's actually very intense. And then I entered her life in a more thorough way than I would have imagined possible, and learned so much I hadn't known even as a sibling, and was very transformed. And riding the bus with my sister is a chronicle of that year, along with our lives from infancy to middle age, because I did provide the backstory leading up to how she came to this life. So that's pretty much, there's a lot more I could say about what the book is, but that's the basics of what the book is.
One of the things that I was really, that I personally treasure about the book is the honesty with which you share with us the moments in your life, and it's because it's part memoir as well, isn't it? You're very generous with your sharing about how everything came to be in your life from a very, very early age. And this, I think, is so important, Rachel, because our stories, people can look at you and say, wow, this lady's doing this, this and that. You've got it made. But to know where you've come from, how you got there, and the decisions and choices that you made along your own journey that brought you to here is a real gift, I feel.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I've always felt mortality nipping at my heels, and I'm not sure why, but I always have. And I think if you're always aware that your time on this earth is very short, I think it tends to keep you more honest. And I just don't see the point in painting a pretty picture instead of an honest one, because you do no one any good. I think if by sharing an honest story of some of the incredible challenges that my family went through, and then how we moved through them, I think if people can see that and they can go, oh wow, you can go through something like that and come out not just strong but able to love and able to be loved and able to give and wanting to give and not bitter. I think that's a wonderful thing to be able to do to somebody. And honestly, I just can't imagine doing otherwise. And I think probably the main reason why is when I was growing up, when you're the sibling of somebody with a disability and you're growing up and you're in a world that is bullying your sibling and neglecting them and discriminating against them. And at the same time, sometimes in the media there will be these sugary sweet portrayals of them. And it would just make me unglued because, I don't know what you have in terms of stereotypes there, but one of the stereotypes that I would always hear when people would find out I have a sister with the term we use in the States now is an intellectual disability, they would say, oh, they're God's true angels. And I'd want to think, wait a minute, have you shared in a room with, one of these two angels? Like, how about that she's just a regular person?
Exactly. Or that
And,
they're so special. They're so special. I mean, we're all special. I agree with you because, we're brought up, I was certainly brought up, don't look at people who are any different from you, don't stare, don't talk to them. And I was hence, I was terrified that someone that was different to me in any way might approach me. And I realised later when my late husband was working in this field, I then came into contact with a lot of people with intellectual disabilities on all different levels, that was the key for me. When I realised I was afraid of what my response should be because I had no clue, I then was able to move into that world a lot more fully to understand. Like if someone came up to me and they were French, for example, and they wanted to speak to me, I wouldn't understand what they were saying, but I wouldn't be afraid of them either. And that helped me such a lot to realise that it's another language. It's a different way of being to the way that I know, but it is no less, it is no more. It is what it is. And if I want to make a difference on the planet, I want to be accessible to people. I want my heart to be open to everyone.
I think that's wonderful, and I think that viewing disability as just another form of difference is the way I view it. But I know that there are people out there who view disability as making you less than human, and particularly for people with my sister's disability, the abuse, the cruelty, the mockery, the hate is so extreme, and behind it all is, I think, this belief that people aren't really people if they have a different way of being, as you put it, if they have autism or an intellectual disability or cerebral palsy, if their brains work a little bit differently. And what is that saying about the person who has that level of judgment? You know, on the one hand, it's saying they haven't been exposed to very much, but on the other hand, it's saying they have a very, very limited view of humanity. And what happens when they have a child with a disability or when their parent gets Alzheimer's? Because eventually disability touches all of us. It's just part of the human condition.
Absolutely, beautifully said. And I really agree. Someone asked me once, would you still love me if something happened to me? Maybe I was in an accident or whatever. I was only in my 20s, and I really needed to think about that because I hadn't previously. And I realised that I really need to have a very clear understanding of what my list is, because we all have lists, don't we, for everything. If you meet this criteria, it means that. So I've had to be very clear about what my lists are and what makes me want to, be in someone's life and have them in mine. And I can't even remember how long ago, 12 years maybe, I don't know. I myself was in an accident and have acquired brain injury, and it changed my life. The way everything that I knew was gone. Myself as a name was gone. I was wiped off the planet. That was very hard to come to terms with. But looking back now, what a gift. Everything that's happened since then Angel Heart Radio may never have happened. I may have just, plodded along on my course saying, this is my life and this is what it's going to look like in 10, 20 years' time. But that made me stop. It stopped me in my tracks. And now when I see someone who looks different to me in any way, and I don't care what way it is, I'm able to look at that person and say, I see you. I see you, and you are amazing, just the way you are. Because we want to change people, don't we?
Well, that was the big thing I learned in riding the bus with my sister. I mean, over the course of doing that experience, and that I then tried to communicate in the book, is that I've been looking at her as checks on a checklist, and I needed to learn to love her in her totality and not to withhold love or judge her because she was doing something else with her life than I wanted her to do. And, okay, so she doesn't want to get a job, she wants to ride the bus. That's not a reason for me not to love her. I love her because I love her, and period. That's it. And that's what I came to over the course of that year, that she has a right to live her own life the way she chooses and to be her own person. and not to be controlled by me. And once I realized I didn't need to control in order to love, I was able to start applying that to all my other relationships. And I think that's the thing that people get very caught up in, is you see someone who's different and they operate according to maybe different principles or different values. They want to ride the bus. They value riding the bus rather than going to a job. And it's okay. People don't have to be clones of you for you to love them or to respect them. You can love and respect them just because they exist, because if you believe in God, they're one of God's children, and if you don't, because they are your fellow human. That's enough of a reason.
Absolutely. And who's to say, let's just imagine in the bigger scheme of things that everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Who's to say that Beth's, in inverted commas, job is not to ride the bus and bring her opinions, which we know sometimes are very loud, from reading
yes.
but herself, her light, her absolute determination that she has the right to live a life of her choosing. And if no one else likes it, that's fine. They don't have to. But she gets to make that choice for herself.
Yes. So you're saying imagine a world where that's just what everybody recognizes about everybody?
Yeah.
We'd have a much better world. We'd have a way better world. So much of, like, when you listen to the news, so much of the news is about one set of people trying to impose control on another set of people. You have to live the way we tell you to live. You have to worship our God. You have to dress the way we want you to dress. You have to do this and that we, want you to do, as if people don't have free will, as if we're little robots for somebody to wind up, and that's not reality. It's not. It's not.
And it's certainly not a reality I want to perpetuate.
Yeah, and I think people can be very threatened by just accepting all form of humanity, just accepting them the way they are, and I'm not entirely sure why, but I suppose it's fear of some kind, fear of things maybe not being as orderly as they want to think they should be, or of somebody thinking differently than they do. But once you've made the shift, like you clearly did, it's just so easy. It's just so not a big deal to do.
Yeah.
I don't see what the big deal is.
I'm with you on that one. At the end of the day, if someone came to me and said, look, if your eyes were brown and you were 4 feet tall and your hair was blonde, you'd be okay, which happens in its own way anyway, which has happened to me all my life, because I've always been so different in so many ways to others. And then after the whole brain thing, I realised that if I'm not okay with me, then no one else can ever be. And it was such a great thing to really come to that point, Rachel. Okay, am I okay with me? Let's make a list. And I recommend everyone does this. And if you're really not okay with something, that's all right as well. I'll put that on my list. And Doreen Virtue taught me this. And at the end of my list, I looked back at my checks that said, no, I'm not okay. And what I then did was I had this little affirmation, I am willing to be okay with myself. And if deep down, truly, if the truth were told, I really wasn't willing, I would then say, I am willing to become willing to be okay with myself about this.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Isn't it great?
That's so great.
There's somewhere to go. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Let me ask you this, though. When you moved into a phase of, I would imagine this took a period of time for you to make this transition into just accepting yourself, or being willing to be willing to accept yourself. What did you feel on the other side? Like, did you feel Did you stop whatever self-doubts you'd had, or self-dislike maybe, that you had, or was it still that you noticed it but it didn't bother you anymore?
It was a little bit of both. I stopped it in the sense that I didn't perpetuate. When I noticed, because I still do it today, like there's so many things. I could pick myself to pieces in 5 minutes flat if anybody gives me half the opportunity, including myself. But what I choose to do now is when I notice, when it comes to my attention that I'm picking myself to pieces, there are a couple of things I do. One of the things, I put my hand on my heart, and that really helps to just bring me into my center and do my affirmation again. I'm willing to love me just as I am. Gratitude is another one. Being really extremely grateful for things which at the time may be very difficult to see how anyone could be grateful. There's been a lot of stuff happen in my life, and I've had a lot of opportunities to move into that. But the biggest thing is I'm actually willing to make the shift. I'm willing to make that change because I want a better life for myself, and I recognise I'm the only person that can provide that. And that took a long time to get there.
Yeah, that's the key, is to feel that you're the one who has the power to decide your own feelings and your outlook on things. One of the bus drivers that my sister rides with, driver Jacob, he helped me so much during that year.
He's one of my favorites.
He's so great. He's so great. He's so great, and he still is so great. And he said this wonderful thing to me, which initially was really hard for me. He said, "When I'm not feeling patient with Beth, I know it's not about Beth. It's about me, because Beth is just Beth. She just is who she is. And if I find myself feeling impatient, I have to say to myself, what do I need to do to change myself so I can just be with Beth, because Beth is just Beth." And when he first told me that, I at first I kind of rejected it, and I thought, no, if I'm annoyed with Beth, it's because of something Beth did, instead of that I can choose not to be annoyed with her, and because she's just who she is. And the things that I would get annoyed with were always the same things anyway. And if you know that somebody is the way they are, why get annoyed with it? They are the way they are. And once I started making that shift toward her, then I started thinking, oh, well, I can, make that toward me too. And I can control how I feel toward myself, toward other people, toward the world. I can choose if I'm going to be bitter and annoyed, or if I'm going to be embracing and hopeful, and without it being a false feeling. I can choose that, and I think once you realize you have the power to do that, and the freedom to do it, and the right to do it, life becomes a much happier place.
Absolutely. It took me a long time to really get to that, because I was very invested in people-pleasing and feeling a victim of life. And I became so bitter at one stage in my own life that no one could stand my company, including myself. And I wasn't really sure how I was going to survive certain events that had happened, which, when you look at them on paper, yes, certain things happened, and no, they weren't, perhaps the best way for things to have been handled around me. Yet at the same time, I had to come to that pivotal point. What am I going to do about this? Do I really, how important is it? And Louise Hay says, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? And I chose being happy. Yep.
Yeah.
Goosebumps. Now, we're about to go to a break, but before we do, as the universe is such a beautiful place, I've got riding the bus with my sister in my hand, and I've opened it asking, for something to share. And, of course, Jacob has turned up. Now, everyone else, as Rachel's just said, Jacob is one of the drivers on the buses that Beth rides. And I want to share this with you before we go to the break. Jacob has become fond of a particular rider. This is on page 250. She's a young mother in advanced stages of cancer. He tells me that she has a wisdom that life is to be lived to its fullest every moment, and that she has a great love for her family. He says, She makes me care more about people than I ever did. Look at that. And Jacob goes on, he brings her homemade corn pie because it's a favourite. He speaks to other riders about her courage and he prays for her. Jacob is such a wellspring of, I love Jacob and I've never met him. Yet in the pages of your book, Rachel, I got to visit with him and see behind the little tiny things he does. And he's so generous in spirit, isn't he?
He's he's an exemplary human being. I cannot speak highly enough of him. And he's still like this to this day. And, people who don't ride buses will sometimes say, oh, I don't believe, bus drivers are like that. But people who do ride buses, and particularly in smaller cities, a bus driver who's well suited to his career is a people person and has the ability and cares to have the ability to be compassionate toward all of the people they transport, to be their friends, to be their supports, to guide them when necessary, to help them out in hard times. One of the women drivers says, I've been many a warm shoulder, that so often I'm the first person someone sees when they're in crisis. And I think a great bus driver, like Jacob to me, is the epitome of a great bus driver, but, there's so many others like him who just really want to give to people and learn spiritually from them, and who recognize that riding the bus is a way to kind of fulfill your destiny, because you're with all other people who aren't just going somewhere, they're at a moment in their lives, and so often able to just turn to the person next to them and learn about life and allow themselves to be changed in that brief moment.
And imagine, because I know from reading the book, a lot of people have had very strong opinions about Beth needing to get a job, etc. But imagine everything that her dedication to living a life of her choosing. She has had this wonderful experience of having a friend like Jacob, which in turn, of course, brings him into your sphere, and you brought him into mine, and now I'm bringing him into others. So I want to say to everyone listening, next time you get on a bus or a train or whatever it is, or not a train because you won't see the driver, but when you get on a bus, in Australia, it's pretty widespread. We thank the driver when we get off. Thank you, driver. It's such a simple thing to do, and such a wonderful thing to remember that that person sitting behind the wheel has a family and a life of their own. They have happiness and cares and worries, and we don't know what's going on in their day. So shower a little bit of kindness. It's such a simple and important thing to do.
And they may shower it back at you, too, particularly if you're a regular rider. They will come to care about you, and if you don't show up one day, they're going to worry.
You're going to want to know where you are.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
I mean, I've heard so many drivers where a regular didn't show up, and they ended up either going to their house or calling an ambulance or something, and found out the person had a stroke, and nobody was home, and nobody would have found out, and they saved the person's life. I hear these stories all the time.
Absolutely. That is exquisite. Exquisite.
Yeah.
Now, when we come back from the break, I want to ask you about your book, Beautiful Girl, The Beautiful Girl. I don't know whether you've ever heard of the music of Faith Rivera. Wow. I tell you what, when you hear this woman's lyrics, and this song is called Beautiful, so of course I knew it was perfect for today. When you hear her lyrics, I often am in tears when I come back from playing one of Faith's songs, because they move me so deeply. And she speaks about looking in the mirror, and instead of seeing the ugly girl, she says she sees the beautiful girl, who she really is, and encourages us all to do the same thing. So this is Beautiful by Faith Rivera, everyone. We will be back in just a few minutes.
When I woke up this morning, had a special moment, and I felt something different but strangely cool. Radio clock is alarming, tapping thoughts started forming, and I can't hear the voices of gloom and doom. Oh, I am feeling light, intoxicated.
Wow. And we'll always be beautiful. Welcome back, everyone, to Angel Heart Radio on the Angel Heart Radio Network. You're with Anaya Joy Halili, coming live from Brisbane with our fabulous guest, Rachel Simon. That was Beautiful by Faith Rivera. And you can hear Faith's music and buy Faith's music at reverbnation.com/Faith Rivera. And I want to share with you, before we come back to Rachel, a couple of the lines of the lyrics, because, you know, for a long time I thought I was just an ugly person. I didn't know how to love me. I'm going to get really emotional again. I warned Rachel I might, because you guys know me. I felt so unhappy and so unloved in myself, and I wanted everyone else to love me and make me feel amazing, and I had to learn that that's my job. That's what I'm here to do, and as I love me, I can love other people as well. So listen to this. The ugly girl that I thought I was, that's not who I am. No, it's never been. Now I can love myself, looking at the sweet face in the mirror. Now I can love myself, and the truth of me is getting clearer, that I have always been and will always be beautiful. How amazing is that? That's Faith Rivera for you. She is incredible. Welcome back, Rachel.
Hi, it's great to be back. And what a beautiful song.
Isn't she amazing?
Yeah. It's wonderful, and it so completely ties into what we're talking about.
Absolutely. When I got in the studio this morning, and I always come and check out what music I want to play, Beautiful was just looking at me straight in the face, and I thought, how awesome is this?
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. Simon Swain in the chat room said he was chair dancing. He says it's the best chair dancing song ever. I chair dance and I cry at the same time. Oh, gosh. So Riding the Bus with My Sister, everyone, is an absolutely incredible book, and one I would recommend for your library, for your Christmas gifts, for your birthday gifts, for your gifts for no reason whatsoever. And it was actually made into a movie, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and I'm glad you brought that up. It was made into a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie, and the actress Rosie O'Donnell played my sister Beth, and my character was played by an actress named Andie MacDowell, and Angelica Houston, who's both an actress and director, directed it. And it did take some liberties with the story, so it's a wonderful movie, and I'm very glad it got made. But what I say to people is, if you're a reader, you will definitely appreciate reading the book, and you can see the movie too. But I think the book has more depth, as books often do, and the truer story, of course. And if you're not a reader, I hope you do get to see the movie, because I think just the movie in and of itself, it talks so much about my character just learning to accept my sister on her own terms, and as a result of that, coming to accept herself much more as well. So it does get that basic message across, and it does it very beautifully.
That was one of the things that I really loved about this book. I mean, I could list probably, 500 things about this book I really loved. I mean, truly, really, I could. One of the things I loved about it was you were very honest with the fact that, you really, riding the buses with Beth wasn't at the top of your list in the beginning. Do you want to share with us briefly how that came to happen, that you actually did ride the buses with Beth?
Yes, and this is very different from the movie. In real life, I was single and had a number of jobs, part-time jobs, to keep myself going. And one of the things I did was I wrote freelance commentary for a newspaper in Pennsylvania. I actually ran out of ideas for my next piece, and told my editor I was too busy to come up with ideas, and it was the holidays, and I needed to be focused on that, and that meant I needed to figure out how to go visit my sister, so I had to work around her bus schedule. And he said to me, "What?" And I said, "Oh, I have a sister who rides buses all the time." And he said, "Oh, you really? That's so interesting. Tell me more." And I really couldn't tell him very much, because I had kind of been judgmental about my sister, and I didn't know very much about what she was actually doing. And he said, "I'm going to assign you to ride with her for a day and write a piece about it, and that's your next piece." And so he kind of broke the ice, and I asked Beth if I could do that, and she said, "Yes!" and she was just so happy because I was going to enter her life instead of standing outside it and criticizing it. And I've since come to understand that when people love something and they want to do it a lot, if we don't like what they're doing, we tend to call it their obsession. But if we can instead think of it as their passion and then enter that passion and do that passion with them, it really does change everything because you understand why they care about it and who they know through it, and their friends become your friends. So I spent the night at her apartment and got up at a ridiculous hour and got on that first bus. And that very first bus, she went and got a cup of coffee for the driver before the bus even came, and she didn't drink coffee. I couldn't figure out why we were getting any coffee, and as she walks on the bus, she hands him this cup of coffee, and he handed her $1, and he said, "This is our arrangement. This is how every day begins." And I realized, these were truly friends she had cultivated on these buses, and that she was a part of their lives and a helpful part of their lives, and they were part of hers. And then we spent that day riding, bus to bus to bus and having a really great time. It almost felt like party hopping. And if you don't like a situation, you just leave and get on the next one. And it was really fun. And I went home and wrote the article, and it came out, and it was actually kind of a big deal and a very loved article, which seemed ironic because I had never even really talked about that I had a sister who did this. And then a few weeks later, she invited me to attend what's called her annual Plan of Care meeting, where the staff who support her get together with her and talk about her care. And she doesn't like these meetings, but she invited me to it. And I didn't even know what I was getting into. I had never been invited. So I get to this meeting, and she's not really paying much attention, and I wasn't either, really. And then we were done and left the meeting. And when we left the meeting, she started running to a bus, and I said, "What are you doing? I'm going to take you to lunch." And she said, "No, we're going to ride the bus." And I said, "Well, I did. We already did that, and I wrote the article." And she said, so I'm like running after her, and we get to the bus stop, and she said, "Well, just ride with me for a little while then." And I said, "Well, like how long?" And she said, "Well, how about a year?" And I was like, "A year? I can't do that." And she doesn't know why she asked me that, although I think it was because we just were at the annual Plan of Care meeting. And so I said, "I don't want it." And she said, "Please." And, the bus is coming down the road toward us. And I just had to make up my mind. And I thought, I felt, angry with her for a long time and not getting along. And I really love her. And, I don't just love her because she's someone with an intellectual disability or because she's my sister. I love her because I love her. And I hated feeling bad toward her. So I said yes. And I said I'll come, a few times a month for a day or two at a time, and because I figured I could work that out around my work schedule. And she said okay, and then boom, the bus pulled up, and there I was getting on it.
and would have had no clue at that stage that as those doors opened for you, a whole new life was waiting for you, a new part of your life, a connection with your sister and with other amazing people.
Yeah, I really had no idea. But the bus drivers were so fascinating and wise people, and had so many insights into life and into my sister and into me. And my sister's boyfriend is also kind of a remarkable person and a very thoughtful person. And then there was my sister's case manager and some of the passengers, and yeah, it's a whole world. She took me into this whole world, and I was very transformed by it.
And then we got a chance to be transformed by it as well. Rachel,
Okay.
you're one of you've won a lot of really beautiful and amazing awards, and I'm reading that you are one of the only authors to have been selected twice for the Barnes & Noble Discover New Writers Award, once for the novel The Magic Touch, which I haven't read yet, but you bet your boots I'm going to, once again for your memoir, Riding the Bus with My Sister. How cool is that?
It's very cool, and, because it's the Discover New Writers Award, like, technically you really can't be discovered as a new writer twice, and when I got nominated for Riding the Bus, I said to the publisher, wait, I already I already got it once before for a novel. And they said, oops. And then they said, well, you know what, one was fiction, one was nonfiction, so maybe that's okay. And Barnes & Noble Discover New Writers Award said, yeah, it was okay. So I think there's only 2 other people who won it twice out of all the, hundreds of writers who've gotten it over the years.
That's tremendous. And reading that, the movie Riding the Bus with My Sister that we spoke about earlier, based upon this book, and we know that when a book is brought to screen, things have to be changed, for the flow and et cetera, et cetera. So there are things, if you've just joined us, that have been changed from the book. But the book is a great read, and I'm definitely going to watch the movie, but the book's just such a brilliant read. Where was I going with this, Rachel? I've lost. Oh, yes, and... Whoop-a-days, was viewed by over 15 million people. So it's a much-loved story.
Yes, and that was just on its original air date. At least in the States, it reruns very frequently on the Hallmark Channel. And I don't know if you have anything like a Hallmark Channel or anything connected to Hallmark Hall of Fame there, but Hallmark Hall of Fame is the longest-running television series in the States, and they do beautiful theatrical productions or cinematic productions usually of books or true stories. And they've won more awards than any other series on television, and they very often have really famous movie stars in their productions, and everybody loves them. I mean, it's you put on a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie, and you'll be moved, and you'll be learning something about life, and but I have to say, I think Riding the Bus with My Sister is one of the most famous Hallmark Hall of Fame movies. And I hear from people sometimes in very remote parts of the world who have seen it, and I guess dubbed or with subtitles or something. And it's just so funny to think, oh, there we are riding the bus in, Argentina or Poland or, wherever. But it's cool. It's really cool.
It's very cool indeed. This is actually, did this open the door then for your, because you're a national speaker as well, I know you do a lot of speaking around your country on disability and diversity, so this opened the door for that, and I believe, is that correct?
Yeah, well actually it preceded the movie. When the book came out in 2002, and a couple months after it came out, I gave the first talk I ever gave at a conference for family members of people with disabilities, and there were 1,000 people in the audience, and I'd never done public speaking, but the person who ran that organization met me before the book came out, and he just immediately said, do you want to be the keynote speaker? And I said, yeah, okay. And I actually didn't even prepare a talk. I just brought some photographs and told the story, and I found it incredibly easy, because when you're the family member of somebody who's different in some way, you kind of spend your life doing public speaking. You're always standing up to people who are ignoring your family member, or not being nice, or acting in some disrespectful way, and you're standing up and you're challenging them on it, and so it was kind of just this dream to do what I'd been doing anyway, but to do it in a sustained way instead of, spontaneously saying something to a waitress or to students in the hallway or something. And then once I did that talk, the invitations just started pouring in, and it's been 2002, 2012. Yeah, it's been 10 years, and I haven't stopped. Yeah, the invitations just keep coming, and I just keep traveling. In fact, I haven't had a job for the past 5 years, and so it's the writing and the public speaking is how I earn my living now. And people say, oh, doesn't it get tiring? Getting on a plane and going all over the place. And no, it's just wonderful. I love it. It's not so much that I love doing the talks, but I love the people I meet. Because all over the country, I meet people who already know me because of my books, and they open up and tell me their stories. And when I do the book signing after the talk is done, right when the book first came out, I started doing this where I'd be signing a book, and people getting on the book signing line would be crying because they would be so affected by what I said and by the book and what it brought up for them about their own lives. So the very first book signing I did for Riding the Bus, I stopped sitting down and I stood up and I started offering people hugs. And so I just don't even sit down. I do my talk and then I go to the book signing and I just stand up and I just hug people and let them cry. And so it's just like, what could be better than that? It's sort of like, it's like being a bus driver, I guess, going all over the country and listening to people and supporting them and, cheering them on when they are doing something, positive for themselves and the people they love. And I think most people, want to do the right thing and want to love themselves. And I think just a little bit of help to realize they can and how they can is all people need. And so I'm happy to be able to provide it, just like you're providing it with your wonderful radio show.
Yes, thank you so much. If we've got time, there's so many things I would love to speak to you about, but we're sort of coming up to the last part of the program now.
Oh, no.
And doesn't it go fast, Rachel? It's like, bam, it's gone.
Yeah, really?
I want to speak. Yeah. One of the things I would love if you could, I want to offer this to everyone. Have a listen to what you can make, that old saying, make lemonade out of lemons. In your book, The House on Teacher's Lane, there's a fabulous story you share in that book about the first morning in your temporary home while your actual home is being renovated and the bedroom door closes.
Right.
Can you share that?
Oh, boy, you are good. Nobody's brought that up for so long. Okay, so we were doing this big renovation of, in fact, the house I'm in right now as I'm on this phone call. And my husband's an architect, and and so he had the wisdom to know that when you're doing a really major renovation, you should move out of the house and not do it while you're in the house. So we actually found a place to rent. We moved across town into another house. And the first morning in the house, I actually had one of my talks, and it was about an hour away by car. And I got up in the morning and closed this bedroom door of this new bedroom that we had moved into, so the cats wouldn't get into the room. Went downstairs, had my breakfast and everything, came back upstairs, and the door wouldn't open. And something just broke, I guess, in the doorknob, and it wouldn't turn. And there was no way to climb in a window. It was up too high, and we didn't have access to a ladder. And everything I needed for that talk was in the room. So I had my clothes and my wallet and my car keys and my money and my identification and my phone, and everything was there. And I thought, oh, my God, how am I going to get to this talk, and what am I going to do? And it was this complete panic situation. And fortunately, my husband had – so I go into this at great length in that book, and then my husband had just a teeny bit of juice left back in his cell phone, which I was able to access. And I realized that the person who was hosting my event happened to live in the same town that this new house was in, and I managed to call him, and I said, "Well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?" And he said, "Well, maybe my wife can pick you up and bring you to the train station and give you money for a train and bring makeup and stuff." And I said, "Well, what am I going to do for clothes?" And he said, "Well, maybe, she can give you some clothes." And I'm actually very petite. And so I said, "Well, I don't know." And I told him my size, and he said, "Well, I don't think so. I don't think that'll work." And so I got off the phone with him, and I thought, oh, no. Am I going to do like a talk? It was for medical school class. And am I going to do this in, shorts and a tank top and sneakers, and which I just couldn't bear the thought of doing. And at the last second, I realized I could wear my husband's clothes, which he had in a different room. So I put on his clothes, and they didn't really fit, but that was okay. And then I got to the medical school, and somebody loaned me like a belt to hold his pants up and a sweater. And I went and did my talk, and I talked about the importance of always having a plan D. So you can have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C, but always have a plan D and just keep believing that you can figure it out. But the thing that was great about it was realizing I had this level of resourcefulness that I hadn't realized, and that I could kind of recreate myself. And that particular section in the book ends with me remembering this beautiful image from when King Tut's tomb was found. And it's a famous story. The person who'd been looking for this tomb had been looking for years. And then finally, he and his benefactor came across a sealed-up place, I guess, under the dunes or whatever. And he thought, I wonder if this is it. I wonder if this is it. And he managed to sort of tap his way into a chink in this divider and open up the tiniest window into the room. And he looks into the room, and he sees just all manner of, just beautiful golden things, that were buried with King Tut. And before he turns around to his benefactor says, "What's in it? What's in it? Can you see? What are you seeing?" And he says, "Yes, I can see. It's beautiful things." And that's what I feel I kind of realized, that in my inner life, I had this resourcefulness. I had this with me. I had beautiful things. The inside of me was beautiful, and I just needed to open the door to myself to see it, to find that out.
It's just so wonderful. And when I was reading it, and I was right there with you, Rachel, when that door closed and you realised, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is she going to do? And I'm there thinking, I'm like it's happening to me, and I'm scrabbling through my mind, thinking of what to do, what could be done, and how you came about realising that at the end of the day, you could walk into that, and you had to catch a train, which was an hour away, I believe. So you had to walk into that room in your husband's, rolled up pants and somebody's cardigan or sweater and something to hold your pants up. But it didn't matter, because you were there with a message, and the message was important. And in some way, it was such a parallel to Beth, because Beth, your sister, who we're speaking about earlier for people who may have just joined us, she wears the wildest outfits, doesn't she? And she's really happy. She doesn't care where anything matches.
That's right.
So it was this really great, for me, melding of these two beautiful people, Rachel and Beth, and how you came together in so many profound ways. And here, at some point down the track, this little event came up and opened another door, and you walked through it with such grace. And that's what I love about you, Rachel.
That's so wonderful. That's so wonderful. Well, I'll tell you, one of the things I realized with both of those books, both Riding the Bus with My Sister and The House on Teacher's Lane, they both have recurring images of doors opening. And Riding the Bus with My Sister actually ends on me opening a door, and The House on Teacher's Lane, right before the epilogue, the final scene before the epilogue also has to do with a door. So I think, the whole idea of opening the door to yourself and embracing what's there and loving yourself, like you say, if you can love yourself, you can love anyone. And I think people who are full of hate, they hate themselves.
Absolutely. I've got to agree with that. And that's got to be such a lonely place to be.
Oh, my goodness. I know. When I'm around people like that, I just think, I'd hate to be inside you. How unpleasant.
Yeah, I'm very happy to walk out the door and close the door, because I don't like that in my life. But at the same time, I always try and imagine, and sometimes I find this really, really difficult if I'm being especially triggered, but still, I try and imagine a beautiful pink cloud that just rains love and compassion on them 24/7, because it's the only thing I can do. And I want to do something.
That's very, very nice. Well, I'll think sometimes, maybe, like Jacob says to Beth, maybe they were in a bad mood, maybe they had a bad day, and so I'll try to think things like that. Maybe this is just a moment in their lives, and this isn't, just who they are all the time. And if they are that way all the time, well, and then I'll think more. I'll think, well, if they are that way all the time, I don't want to be related to them. So,
but you know what? But I've come to realize that they need it even more, Because when I was in that space in my own life, Rachel, and I was so odious and so bitter, and all I could think about was getting what I called justice in my life, because something so huge had occurred that I didn't deserve by other members, by other people. Wow, that was a big one. And it's really helped me. That was a good event, really, because it's helped me realize that when people feel so unhappy and so hard done by all the time, life is a really tough slog. So they probably need it even more. I personally am not going to choose to be around that person. But at the same time, I would like to, do something. And that's something I can do is imagine that cloud, just following them, no matter where they go. What they do with it is up to them. Cloud will just follow them.
I love that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna remember that. That's really nice.
Oh, fabulous. Again, everyone, RachelSimon.com is an absolutely beautiful website, and you can find out so much about Rachel's work, how to purchase her work. You can follow Rachel on Facebook and Twitter and really get on board with how glorious a place it is when you're riding the bus with Beth and Rachel. I would love to have you back on again. There is so much more. I've just discovered the story of Beautiful Girl, and I watched your video, which is on my wall, everyone, on Facebook, and I was just in tears. I was so moved and so profoundly moved by the story and where the story actually came from. I just get lost for words. It's something I'd love to share with people.
Well, once you've had a chance to read the book, I'll come back because I'd love to talk about the story of Beautiful Girl, and I know it's been kind of a big deal throughout the United Kingdom as well as throughout the U.S. I think it was even a bigger book throughout the United Kingdom than Riding the Bus with My Sister. So, I'd love to do that.
Wonderful. That is really, really fabulous. And I want to say to everyone, when I was reading Riding the Bus with My Sister, because we are actually out of time, but when I was reading this book, and I just thought, I really want to share this with everyone, and so I sent an email via Rachel's website, and then I just got this little nudge to look for you on Facebook, which I did, and we ended up connecting, and I shared some things with you and asked you to be on the program, etc. One of the things that I really want to share with everyone is when something good comes into your life and you know it's good, you feel good about it, it makes a difference, you think about the way that you can make a difference in your own life and the lives of others, please embrace that. The riches, the joy, the fun. Listen to Rachel, she's so much fun. It will come into your life as a result, and isn't that just a perfect thing to happen?
No. I agree. Yeah. Smiles are contagious and
they
good
certainly are.
Well, it's so wonderful to talk to you and to talk to the people who listen to you. Thank you so much for having me on.
And thank you so very much for spending so much time with us. My today, your tonight. It's been absolutely fabulous. And if you ever do come to Australia, let's ride the buses together. I reckon that'll be really cool.
I can't wait. Yes, it will be cool.
It will be so much fun. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Okay,
You're such a pleasure. Bye
Bye
for now. Wow, wasn't that just the most wonderful hour, everyone? RachelSimon.com. You can find Rachel on Facebook, on Twitter, and you'll find her books on Facebook and Twitter. Riding the Bus with My Sister, of course, is on Facebook. Simon Swain is saying, great show as ever. Thank you so much, Simon. And I know Simon has read the book. We'll have to have a little powwow later, Simon, on what you gained from the book. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. You're just a pleasure to be with, and I want to remind you, as I always do, that you are amazing and wonderful, and that you've come to the earth to do something really important, and that could be riding the buses, as Beth does. It could be smiling at children. It could be anything. And no one can do what you can do in the way that you can do it. Now, tomorrow we have, tonight we've got the Angel's Kitchen, and that is with Sheila Newberry. So this one is about Archangel Raziel and opening his third eye. Tomorrow is the wonderful Annette McCoy, and Angel Link, fascination with fact and fiction. Then we'll have the next day after that is Self-Help Made Simple. There's such a lot on Angel Heart Radio, and it's all because of you. You tune in week after week, and it's just such a delight. And our numbers have gone through the roof. And next year, I want to share this with you. I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know how it's going to happen, but I've been shown that amazing things are going to unfold on Angel Heart Radio, and it's going to be great to share it with you. Until next week, this is Anaya Joy Halili saying, I love you. You've been listening to another fabulous program on the Angel Heart Radio Network. We thank you for your company today and invite you to join us again. You can find out who's on, when they're on, and who our guests are simply by going to angelheartradio.com. All the links are there. Everything's just one click away. Until we meet again, remember this, that you are magnificent, a wonderful creation, and no one can do what you can do. You're very, very special indeed, and we appreciate who you are in the world. Until next time, keep shining your light, for it's beautiful indeed. Our programs are not intended to replace your doctor's advice. The Angel Heart Radio Network and all our broadcasters do not dispense medical advice, nor do we prescribe any form of treatment for physical or medical problems without the advice of a physician, either directly or indirectly. Our intent is to offer you information of a general nature to help you in your quest for emotional and spiritual well-being. In the event that you do use any of the information broadcast for yourself, the Angel Heart Radio Network and its broadcasters cannot assume any responsibility for your actions. We wish you well in all you do. Thank you for choosing to listen to the Angel Heart Radio Network.